he hesitated. He was 14 years old, and the thing in front of him had once been human, had once been beautiful, had once been someone's daughter. He hesitated, and then he acted. And that hesitation is what tells you everything about who Rama was.
Yeah, that's the exact moment a boy assumes the terrifying, crushing weight of the crown.
Right.
It's a profound turning point, not just in this specific myth, but in our understanding of what leadership actually costs a person.
Absolutely. So, welcome everyone. We are stepping into the incredibly rich, very ancient world of the Valmiki Ramayana for today's deep dive.
Specifically, we're exploring the Bala Kanda.
Right, which is the narrative of childhood and divine birth. And, while on the surface, this might sound like a standard fantasy trope.
Yeah, exactly. Young prince leaves the palace, goes into the dark woods, fights a monster.
Exactly. But when we actually pull back the layers, it is this masterclass in the terrible burden of power.
It really is.
We are looking at the complex ethics of taking action, the philosophy of restraint, and what it truly means to carry duty when there are just no easy victimless choices.
Because the overarching mission here, for us and for the listener, is to dismantle the idea of the thoughtless hero.
Oh, I love that. The thoughtless hero.
Right. We are so accustomed to action heroes who just dispatch enemies with like a witty one-liner and zero remorse.
Yeah, they don't even blink.
They don't. But what we have here is an ancient exploration of the friction between deep empathy and necessary violence. It argues that power is only safe in the hands of someone who is slightly terrified of using it.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we need to establish where we are. We're in ancient India. We have this figure, sage Vishwamitra.
A towering figure.
Uncompromising, fiercely ascetic. And he has basically arrived at the royal court of Ayodhya and demanded that King Dasharatha hand over his eldest son, Rama.
For a very specific, dangerous mission.
Right. And Rama is accompanied by his fiercely devoted brother, Lakshmana.
Who's always by his side.
And remember, like I said in the hook, Rama is just 14 years old here. So Vishwamitra is leading these two boys away from, marble floors and manicured gardens, straight into an absolute nightmare of a wilderness.
Yeah, the physical environment they enter, it's a direct reflection of the narrative's psychological descent.
It's intense.
It is the archetype of the dark, untamed forest.
Yeah.
But it's worse than just being overgrown, It is an oppressive, suffocating place.
The sources describe it so vividly.
They do. The air is thick with this ceaseless, chaotic clamor of crickets, insects, and the roaring of apex predators. Massive dark trees just block out the sun entirely.
Vultures circling.
Exactly. It is a landscape that feels actively hostile to human life.
And the tragedy of this terrifying forest is that it actually used to be a paradise.
It did.
Vishwamitra stalks the boys and he gives them the history of the ground they're walking on. He says, this wasn't always a wasteland.
Far from it.
Right. This exact land once held two incredibly prosperous, radiant cities, Malava and Kurusha. And Vishwamitra explains that these cities were directly blessed by the god Indra.
Which is a huge deal.
Right. The lore states that Indra had committed a severe transgression, basically, in ancient terms, a grave cosmic sin, and he came to this specific region to wash himself in its waters.
And purify himself.
Exactly. The land absorbed his impurity, and in gratitude, Indra showered this region with immense wealth and agricultural abundance. It was literally the jewel of the continent.
Which make his current state deeply jarring.
Yeah, you're walking through a graveyard of a golden age.
And the boys, obviously, they want to know how a divine paradise devolved into a lightless, roaring nightmare.
Naturally.
So Vishwamitra pinpoints the collapse of an entire civilization down to a single entity.
One single being.
A demoness. Her name is Tataka. She is single-handedly ravaging the land, devouring anyone who dares to step foot in it, and turning the paradise into her personal slaughterhouse.
But Vishwamitra doesn't just say, there's a monster, go kill her.
No, he doesn't.
He does something incredibly compelling and actually quite rare in epic storytelling. He gives the monster a comprehensive, deeply tragic history.
He humanizes her.
He forces Rama to understand exactly who and what he's being asked to destroy. Because, Tataka wasn't born a demon.
No, far from it. She was born of a deeply intense spiritual process.
Right.
Her father was a yaksha, a powerful ancient nature spirit named Suketu. And Suketu was fundamentally virtuous, but he suffered from being childless.
Which was a major issue in that context.
Huge. So in this ancient cosmology, to change your fate, you didn't just pray. You performed ascesis, or tapas.
Tapas. Can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, it's a critical concept to understand here. Ascesis isn't just like sitting quietly and meditating. It is rigorous, punishing austerity.
Like what?
Like standing on one leg for years, fasting, enduring extreme heat and cold. It's essentially a thermodynamic process of the soul. You build up so much spiritual friction, so much intense heat, that the fabric of the universe has to rebalance itself just to relieve the pressure. You basically force the gods to grant you a boon.
It's basically hacking the universe through sheer willpower.
That is exactly what it is.
You accumulate so much metaphysical credit that the creator god, Brahma, just has to cut you a check.
And Brahma does. He appears to Suketu, who asks for a child, and Brahma grants him a daughter.
Tataka.
Yes. She's described as gem-like, radiant, staggeringly beautiful. But Brahma also gives this beautiful girl a terrifying upgrade.
Strength.
The physical, raw strength of 1,000 elephants.
It's just such a jarring contrast. I mean, a being of exquisite beauty possessing catastrophic geological power.
It is. And interestingly, Brahma explicitly refused to grant Suketu a son.
Wait, really? Why?
The implication in the text is that male aggression, coupled with the strength of 1,000 elephants, would be inherently too destructive for the world to contain.
Oh, I see.
He believed giving that power to a female form would ensure it remained dormant, or at least, controlled.
Which is, I mean, that's a massive cosmic miscalculation given what unfolds.
Or a huge one.
Because Tataka grows up. She marries a deeply powerful being named Sunda, and she gives birth to a son, Maricha.
Now, Maricha is an interesting case.
Right. He's born with his mother's Yaksha heritage, but due to a separate curse, he is mutated into a Rakshasa, a demon.
Yeah, he grows to have an enormous mouth, a gigantic, terrifying body, and strength that rivals the gods themselves.
So you have a family unit that possesses an almost unimaginable concentration of power.
And then the tipping point occurs, a collision between irresistible force and immovable cosmic authority.
The sage Agastya.
Exactly. Tataka's husband, Sunda, gets into a fierce conflict with Agastya. And Agastya is not someone you cross, he is a master of spiritual authority. In the ensuing clash, Agastya unleashes a curse that instantly strikes Sunda dead.
Hold on, though. I look at Tataka's trajectory here, and I just see a cascade of systemic failures and reactive grief.
Wow.
Well, her husband is obliterated by a sage. She reacts the way any fiercely protective grieving partner who just happens to have the strength of 1,000 elephants would react.
She lashes out.
Right. She and her son are completely unmoored by grief and fury. They charge at Sage Agastya, roaring, literally intending to consume him, to tear him apart in retaliation for Sunda's death.
It's primal reaction.
And Agastya responds to this attack by cursing them. He condemns Maricha to permanently remain a demon. But what he does to Tataka feels incredibly vindictive.
The disfigurement.
Yes, he strips away her original gem-like nature. He curses her to lose all her beauty, mutating her into a hideous, contorted, man-eating monster. I mean, Vishwamitra is pitching this to Rama as a clear-cut mission to slay a monster, but she seems like the ultimate victim of a wildly disproportionate cosmic justice system.
They're not wrong to feel that way.
Her husband is killed, she lashes out in grief, and she is permanently disfigured and damned for it.
Your reaction is exactly the tension the narrative demands you feel. It is a profoundly human objection. But what's fascinating here is we have to look at the mechanics of a curse in this ancient framework.
Okay, lay it on me.
A curse from a sage of Agastya's level isn't just a magical insult. It is the manifestation of absolute objective truth.
So it's not just him being petty.
Exactly. Agastya didn't just decide to make her ugly out of spite. The curse forced her physical form to mirror the internal psychological reality she had chosen in that moment of grief.
Oh, wow.
When she chose to cross the line from grieving widow to a being attempting to devour a sage, she allowed wrath and slaughter to consume her soul. The curse simply made her outside match her inside.
That's chilling.
Her beautiful form could no longer mask the monstrous intent she harbored.
So the outside became a reflection of the horrific choices she was making on the inside.
Precisely.
And once she is trapped in that monstrous form, the grief and fury just completely take over. She leans into the curse.
He becomes the nightmare.
She systematically destroys those prosperous cities we talked about, Malava and Karusha. She slaughters the innocent, devours travelers, and poisons the very earth, creating the wasteland Rama is standing in.
And this brings us back to Vishwamitra and his 14-year-old student.
Right, standing in the middle of all this decay.
The sage paints this entire agonizing picture. The beauty, the grief, the mutation, and the subsequent genocide of this region. And then he looks at Rama and issues a stark, uncompromising command.
For the welfare of society, for the cows and the Brahmins, you must slay her.
And Rama hesitates.
Which, for my money, is the single most important beat in this entire epic so far.
It absolutely is.
He doesn't draw his sword. He doesn't enthusiastically agree. He freezes because he is caught in a paralyzing ethical paradox.
His training.
Exactly. Rama has been trained his entire life in the Dharma, the absolute moral and cosmic duty of a Kshatriya, a warrior prince. The core tenet of that Dharma is the protection of the weak.
And there's a specific rule attached to that.
A specific, inflexible, ironclad rule. Under no circumstances do you kill a woman.
It is a chivalric absolute. To kill a woman is to incur severe spiritual demerit. It's to violate the very code that justifies a warrior's existence in the first place.
So he's completely stuck.
But Vishwamitra is fully aware of the psychological wall Rama has just hit. He anticipates the hesitation. So the sage shifts from historian to legal scholar.
He builds a case.
He begins to build a case law argument for justifiable exceptional violence. He provides Rama with massive historical precedents to prove that the rule has limits.
He brings out the heavy hitters. Vishwamitra says, look at the god Indra. When Manthara attempted to annihilate the earth, Indra struck her down.
He goes even higher up the cosmic chain.
Right. Look at Lord Vishnu himself. When the wife of sage Brigu threatened to destroy the cosmic order, Vishnu severed her head. He's showing Rama that the highest authorities in the universe have had to break this exact rule.
What Vishwamitra is imparting here is the devastating burden of sovereignty.
The cost of leadership.
Exactly. He is explaining that rules like never harm a woman are designed for a functioning, orderly society. But when a being, regardless of their gender, their tragic backstory, or their original divine nature, poses an existential threat to the fabric of reality itself, those standard protections evaporate.
They no longer apply.
Right. A leader cannot hide behind personal moral purity while innocent people are being slaughtered.
It's the ultimate test of prioritizing the macro over the micro. You can acknowledge her trauma, you can pity her curse, but the pile of skulls she's creating is real.
It's very real.
If you refuse to act because you want to keep your own conscience clean regarding the do not kill a woman rule, you become complicit in every subsequent murder she commits.
Sympathy cannot be a shield for allowing continuous evil.
That is such a heavy lesson for a 14-year-old.
That is the crux of it.
Yeah.
The luxury of inaction belongs to the philosopher, not the king. A king must bear the karmic weight of a necessary evil to prevent a greater atrocity.
Vishwamitra is basically telling Rama that his empathy is a beautiful trait for a boy, but it is a fatal flaw for a protector if it leads to paralysis.
Absolutely.
I want to pull this massive cosmic concept down to earth for you, listening right now. We obviously aren't standing in a cursed forest debating whether to shoot an arrow at a demoness.
Hopefully not.
But the architecture of this dilemma is universal. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to end something? Maybe you had to fire an employee whose personal life was unraveling, or you had to completely sever a toxic relationship with a family member.
That's a great comparison.
You knew their history, you knew exactly the childhood trauma or the string of bad luck that made them the way they were. You felt the complexity of their pain.
You hold that empathy.
Have you ever stood in that space, holding absolute empathy for why they are acting monstrously, while simultaneously knowing, with absolute certainty, that you have to draw a boundary and stop them from destroying your life or the lives of others?
It's the agonizing intersection of radical empathy and necessary boundaries. Understanding the etiology of a disease doesn't mean you let it consume the patient.
Exactly.
You could understand precisely how a person was forged into a destructive force, yet still recognize your absolute obligation to stop the destruction.
So Rama processes all of this. He absorbs the legal argument, the historical precedent, the terrible math of leadership, and he makes the intellectual choice.
He agrees.
He declares out loud that he will honor the orders of his father, King Dasharatha, who told him to obey the sage, and he will follow Vishwamitra's command. He agrees that she must be stopped.
But agreeing to a concept in your mind and actually physically ending a life are two vastly different things.
Completely different.
The transition from philosophical consent to physical violence is where the true test lies. Rama grips the center of his massive bow. He raises it. He clenches his fist on the hand grip and he pulls back the string, letting it snap.
He twangs the bowstring.
He does.
The sound of that twang is described not just as a noise, but as a concussive blast. The vibrations explode outward in all directions. It is a thunderous clap that echoes through the canopy, terrifying the wildlife and shattering the heavy, oppressive silence of the dark forest.
It is a deliberate, unmistakable declaration of war.
And it absolutely infuriates Tataka.
She has ruled this domain for years through absolute terror. No one challenges her.
The sheer audacity of it.
The sheer audacity of this sonic challenge acts like a magnet. The text describes her response with terrifying physical weight. She comes crashing through the ancient trees, snapping them like twigs.
Just bulldozing through the forest.
She is a towering, monstrous, roaring force of nature, rushing straight toward the source of the sound.
And she doesn't just rely on her 1,000-elephant brute strength. She is a deeply intelligent, magical being.
She uses tactics.
She utilizes the environment. As she charges, she whips up an enormous, blinding cloud of dust. She completely disorients Rama, Lakshmana, and Vishwamitra.
And from within that suffocating dust storm, she uses her illusionary magic to unleash a deadly, localized meteor shower.
A storm of stones.
She rains down a terrifying storm of heavy stones and jagged boulders from the sky.
Now, watch Rama's initial tactical response, because this is fascinating. Even after intellectually agreeing with Vishwamitra that she must be slain, Rama's inherent gentleness still seeks a compromise.
He's still holding back.
He is in an active kill zone, being pelted by boulders, and he still doesn't aim for her heart. He and his brother Lakshmana fight a defensive, almost surgical battle. Rama fires arrows specifically to sever her arms, attempting to disarm and incapacitate her.
And Lakshmana targets her face, severing her nose and ears.
It's like they're trying to perform an arrest rather than an execution.
That's a very good way to put it.
They are desperately clinging to the hope that if they take away her ability to throw rocks, she'll surrender or flee. They're still trying to honor the spirit of the rule they've been taught.
But that half measure backfires catastrophically.
Because she doesn't need her arms to kill them.
No, she's an illusionist. Once physically maimed, she uses her magic to completely vanish. She becomes an invisible, omnidirectional threat.
Just completely unseen.
She moves seamlessly through the canopy, and from her unseen vantage points, she continues to rain down this relentless, crushing assault of stones.
She escalates the violence. She gives them no quarter.
And this is the moment Vishwamitra realizes Rama is still holding back. He's still hoping for a bloodless resolution. So the sage intervenes with an urgent tactical warning.
What does he tell him?
He tells Rama, evening is approaching.
Ah, the sun is setting.
Yes, and in this specific mythological physics, the setting of the sun is not just a change in lighting. It is a fundamental shift in the balance of power.
Because of the demons.
Right. As twilight approaches, Rakshasas and demons enter their peak cycle of strength. Their magic amplifies, and they become virtually unassailable during the night.
So they are running out of time.
Vishwamitra is telling Rama that his window for a clean victory is closing in minutes. He looks at the boy and explicitly commands him to abandon his mercy.
He tells him to drop his compassion.
Enough with your compassion, he says. He strips away any remaining ambiguity. She is a malevolent, sinister force, and she will kill them all if Rama doesn't finish it.
The reality crashes down on Rama. The time for surgical incapacitation is over. But there's a massive logistical problem here. He can't see her.
She's invisible.
Starting through the trees, throwing boulders. So Rama has to employ a highly advanced, almost mythical martial art technique called Shabda Bedi.
Sonic art.
Sonic archery. He has to close his eyes to the blinding dust, block out the chaos, and rely entirely on his hearing.
And conceptually, sonic archery requires a staggering level of cognitive processing.
I can't even imagine.
You have to isolate the microsounds of her movement, the snap of a branch, the rush of displaced air, the origin point of her roars amidst the deafening clatter of shattering stone.
All in pitch black, basically.
You have to map her trajectory in three-dimensional space, purely through acoustics, calculate the lead time, and fire an arrow blindly into the void, trusting your mental map completely.
And he does it. He tracks her unseen movement in the air above them. He draws an arrow back to his ear, finding that point of absolute stillness amidst the chaos, and he releases it.
The arrow tracks her perfectly, and strikes her squarely in the chest.
It is a devastating, instantly fatal blow.
The prose used to describe her death emphasizes her sheer mass. It says she falls like a thunderbolt striking the earth, collapsing like a mountain whose base has been blasted away.
Just a colossal impact.
The impact of her massive body hitting the forest floor actually shakes the earth for miles around.
And then the dust settles, and there is a silence. But it's not the oppressive, terrifying silence of a predator's domain anymore.
No, the atmosphere completely changes.
It's a deep, ringing, grateful silence. The forest breathes for the first time in an age. The classical verses describe the gods, including Indra, looking down from the heavens, rejoicing and raining down praise upon Rama for completing this impossible task.
It's a moment of cosmic relief.
But I want to highlight a specific, incredibly poignant detail found in some of the adaptations designed for younger readers, because I think it captures the spiritual essence of what just happened perfectly.
It's a beautiful addition.
As Tataka's massive, hideous form lies lifeless on the forest floor, the texts describe it shimmering and beginning to dissolve. And rising up from the corpse is a radiant, luminous being of light.
Her original form.
It is Tataka's original spirit, finally freed from the suffocating cage of Agastya's curse and her own accumulated rage. This spirit of light turns to the 14-year-old boy who just shot her, bows in profound gratitude for her liberation, and departs into the ether.
And the forest reacts to that release.
Immediately, the blighted, poisoned forest responds. The cursed earth heals instantly, blossoming back into the verdant, beautiful paradise it once was.
That imagery perfectly distills our third core life value for this deep dive. Our hesitation before hard acts is not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate proof of moral seriousness.
Moral seriousness, I like that.
Rama's initial reluctance to kill, his desperate attempt to only incapacitate her, demonstrates his deep, inherent reverence for life. It proves he isn't a butcher.
Right.
The problem, as Vishwamitra pointed out, only arises if that hesitation hardens into full paralysis, allowing the evil to triumph and the slaughter to continue.
Exactly. If he had stayed trapped in his ethical debate, holding his bow down, he, his brother, and the sage would have been crushed into pulp under her boulders. The hesitation was right, the eventual action was necessary.
And that ties into the beautiful concept of the release, the idea of moksha or liberation.
Because he freed her.
Within this philosophical framework, Rama didn't just perform an execution, he performed a rescue. Tataka was trapped in a karmic downward spiral.
Every terrible thing she did made it worse.
Every traveler she ate, every tree she destroyed compounded her sin and drove her deeper into degradation. She was incapable of saving herself. By ending her physical existence, Rama acted as a cosmic circuit breaker. He severed the curse, halted her accumulation of sin, and liberated her soul.
It makes me think of a very intense, real-world analogy.
What's that?
It's like being the person who finally has to step in and orchestrate a hard, unyielding intervention for someone you love who is completely lost to a severe addiction.
Oh, that's a tough situation.
In that room, in that moment, the intervention feels violently cruel. You are ambushing them. There is yelling, profound feelings of betrayal, tears, and anger. It feels like you are systematically attacking the person you love.
It feels awful.
But ultimately, applying that unbearable pressure, forcing that hard stop, is the only way to shatter the cycle. It's the only way to free the person you love from the monster the addiction has turned them into. The true compassion isn't in letting them comfortably continue their descent. The compassion is in taking the brutal action required to save them.
That is a very potent, grounding analogy. True compassion is rarely soft. It often requires carrying the heavy, agonizing weight of a severe action on behalf of someone else.
So, Rama has crossed the ultimate threshold. He has taken a life, even knowing it was justified, even knowing it was an act of liberation. The psychological aftermath of ending a life is immense.
It changes a person.
What does that do to a young mind? For Rama, the immediate consequence is not trauma or collapse, but rather an unprecedented, almost unfathomable upgrade in his capabilities.
We move into the morning after the battle. Vishwamitra is observing Rama. He sees how the boy handled the kill, how he processed the aftermath, and Vishwamitra is absolutely elated.
He's proud of him.
He recognizes that Rama has passed a profound internal test. Because of this, the sage decides Rama is ready for a staggering reward. He bestows upon the young prince an array of celestial weapons known as astras.
And we really need to clarify what an astra is. When we say weapons, we aren't talking about Vishwamitra handing him a slightly sharper iron sword or, a better shield.
Not at all.
We are talking about the ancient mythological equivalent of cosmic weapons of mass destruction. These are forces of nature bound into invocations. The source text lists them out in this overwhelming catalog of power, and the names alone paint a terrifying picture.
They really do.
He gives him the discs of Dharma, the disc of time, and the disc of Vishnu. He grants him Shiva's trident. He gives him the Brahma crest, a weapon capable of unmaking creation.
The scope is staggering. The text details weapons aligned with the fundamental elemental forces of the universe.
Like what?
There is the Agnya, which commands localized firestorms, the Vayuvya, which commands hurricane winds, weapons that control the oceans and the sun.
And then there are these deeply esoteric, psychological, and biological weapons, things that don't just blow things up, but alter reality itself.
The reality-bending ones are wild.
The sleep inducer, which can drop entire armies into comas. The weep inducer, which shatters the enemy's morale. The humidifier and the drainer. The intoxicator, which strips away the enemy's sanity.
It reads like a list of fundamental source codes for reality itself.
And Vishwamitra is downloading all of it into the mind of a teenager.
It is a terrifying transfer of martial and magical supremacy. It would be an act of madness to give this to anyone, let alone a youth, if it stopped there.
But it doesn't stop there.
No, and this reveals the crucial, brilliant second half of Vishwamitra's gift. He doesn't just hand over the metaphysical launch keys and walk away. He spends an equal, if not greater, amount of time teaching Rama the specific mantras, the highly complex sonic hymns, and rigorous mental disciplines required to withdraw, neutralize, and annul every single one of these weapons.
This was the part that absolutely fascinated me. He gives him the weapons, but the emphasis is on the safety catches.
The annulment codes.
The process of upasamhara, the withdrawal. The texts give these withdrawal mantras specific, beautiful names like Satyavan and Satyakirti.
And this brings us to our second core life value. Power given with instruction is wisdom. Power given without it is a cataclysm.
It's just a disaster waiting to happen.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, handing a deeply traumatized or untested individual weapons capable of evaporating oceans or driving thousands mad is objectively disastrous. It is a recipe for tyranny.
Absolutely.
The bestowal is only safe because it is completely intertwined with the philosophical grounding of how to deploy them, when to deploy them, and crucially, how to turn them off once the specific threat is neutralized.
It's the ultimate education in restraint. There is this surreal, incredibly vivid moment described in the lore where, upon receiving the mantras, the weapons actually physically manifest before Rama in astral forms.
They step right out of the ether.
Some are glowing with the fierce heat of fire, others drift like heavy smoke, some radiate like the harsh midday sun, and others glow with the cool light of the moon.
It's a stunning visual.
This pantheon of destructive forces stands before this 14-year-old boy. They join their palms together in a gesture of absolute submission, and they speak to him. They say, "We are your servants. What would you have us accomplish?"
A lesser mind, a less disciplined ego would be corrupted instantly by that.
Oh, for sure.
A typical warlord would want to test them. They would point to a distant mountain and say, "Level it, let me see what you can do."
But Rama doesn't do that.
No, his response is perfect. He doesn't test them. He doesn't flex his new muscles. He gently blesses them, physically pats them with his hand, and tells them to retreat into his mind, to wait in silence until they are genuinely needed.
Okay, I have to ask about the causality here. Is it a coincidence that Rama receives these universe-altering weapons only after he survives the ordeal with Tataka? Could Vishwamitra have given him the Brahma crest back in the palace courtyard?
It is not a coincidence at all. It is entirely causal. The entire sequence in the dark forest was a stress test.
A test of his character.
And here's the crucial distinction. The kill itself proved he had the courage and the obedience to act. But the hesitation before the kill proved he had a conscience.
So the hesitation was the key.
Absolutely. Think about the psychology of power. A leader who doesn't hesitate to kill a person who delights in violence, or views taking a life without any moral friction, is a sociopath.
Right, you don't hand them the launch keys.
That is the exact person who is far too dangerous to be trusted with the discs of time or the sleep inducer. Vishwamitra needed to see, in a live fire scenario, that Rama viewed the taking of a life as a heavy, agonizing, solemn duty, not a sport.
Wow.
The true mark of Rama's maturity wasn't just his ability to draw the bow and hit a moving, invisible target. It was proving he possessed the profound moral restraint necessary to be trusted with the annulment codes of the universe. You have to prove you are reluctant to use power before you are allowed to hold it.
That is a staggering insight. Reluctance as the prerequisite for ultimate power. But the reality is, obtaining these astral weapons wasn't just a graduation present to be locked in a vault.
No, he's going to need them.
Rama wasn't going to have much time to reflect on his new arsenal because they haven't even reached their actual destination. The real mission hasn't even begun.
Correct. The journey pushes forward. As they leave the now healed forest of Tataka, the landscape shifts dramatically. Rama spots a beautiful, verdant grove.
The complete change of scenery.
It's a lush, thriving area that stands in stark contrast to the wasteland they just survived. He asks Vishwamitra about this place, and the sage explains that they have arrived at the Siddha Ashrama.
The hermitage of the perfect ones.
Yes. And just like the dark forest, this peaceful ashram has a massive cosmic history attached to it.
Tell us about it.
Vishwamitra tells Rama a story that stretches back thousands of years. It's the story of the god Vishnu incarnating as a dwarf named Vamana.
The Vamana avatar.
Right. At that time, a tremendously powerful demon emperor named Bala had managed to conquer all three realms of existence, the heavens, the earth, and the netherworld. He'd usurped the cosmic order entirely.
So Vishnu has to step in.
To restore balance without violating the complex boons protecting Bala, Vishnu took the deceptive form of a humble dwarf monk. He approached Bala during a massive sacred sacrifice.
A yajna.
Yes. Now, a king performing such a sacrifice is bound by a sacred vow to grant any charity requested of him. Vamana asks for a seemingly pitiful charity, just the amount of land he can cover in 3 strides of his little legs.
Which seems like nothing.
Bala, amused and bound by his oath, agrees. He thinks he's giving away a patch of dirt. But then, the illusion drops. The dwarf Vamana begins to expand to incomprehensible cosmic proportions. The physics of the universe warp around him.
He just grows and grows.
With his first impossibly massive step, he covers the entirety of the earth. With his second step, he covers the expanses of the heavens. Having nowhere else to place his third step, he places it on Bali's head, forcing the demon emperor down into the netherworld.
Incredible.
In 3 strides, he takes back the entire universe, neutralizing the threat and restoring cosmic balance. And the exact spot where Vishnu performed his intense austerities before executing this cosmic trick was right here, in this very grove. This is the Siddha Ashrama.
The subtext here is just screaming off the page for anyone familiar with the broader mythology.
It's everywhere.
To the ancient audience and to you, the listeners, it is a known fact that young Prince Rama is actually the current human incarnation, the avatar of that very same god, Vishnu.
He is Vishnu.
Within the narrative of this specific moment, Rama is acting purely as the prince. But Vishwamitra knows exactly who he's walking with. Vishwamitra is essentially bringing Vishnu back to his old stomping ground.
Welcome back.
He's quietly implying, you cleaned up a massive evil here once before when you were a dwarf. Now you've returned to this exact spot as a warrior prince to do it again. It's a beautiful, resonant echo of cosmic history.
It is a profound cyclical return.
Yeah.
And Vishwamitra has brought Rama here for a highly specific, critically important mission. The sage needs to perform a complex, vital 6-day sacrifice, another yajna.
Okay.
This ritual is meant to generate immense spiritual energy for the world, but he has been unable to complete it because local demon forces constantly attack, defiling the sacred altar with blood and flesh before the ritual can conclude.
So that's the threat?
Here's the catch. To perform the sacrifice properly, Vishwamitra must enter a state of complete sensory withdrawal. He must take a strict vow of absolute silence and nonviolence. For 6 days and 6 nights, he cannot speak, he cannot move from the altar, and he absolutely cannot fight back.
He has to make himself completely, utterly vulnerable. He's a sitting duck for almost a week.
Precisely. The mission parameters are set. Rama and his brother Lakshmana must stand guard over the altar. They must remain awake, hyper-vigilant, and perfectly focused for 6 continuous days and nights, protecting their completely defenseless mentor from an inevitable demonic assault.
Talk about an endurance test. Imagine the physical and mental toll, 14 years old, standing in a forest, staring into the dark for 144 hours straight.
It's agonizing.
They do it. Day 1, day 2, day 3 pass. 5 full days and nights pass without a single incident. The tension must have been unbearable. They are exhausted, their nerves are frayed, but they remain focused.
And then comes the climax.
Day 6. The final, crucial day of the ritual. Suddenly the peace shatters. The sacrificial altar violently flares up, the flames behaving erratically. Rama looks up, and the sky above them is completely blotted out by massive, unnatural, roiling dark clouds.
It is a coordinated magical assault. Swooping down from the sky, leading a swarm of lesser demons, are 2 massively powerful Rakshasa commanders, Maricha and Subahu.
Wait, let's pause on that name. Maricha, as in Tataka's son.
Yes,
The son of the Demoness Rama just killed a few days ago.
the very same. The grief-stricken, mutated son is back, and he is leading an aerial assault, raining torrents of blood and gore down upon the sacred purified altar.
That's horrifying.
The goal is desecration.
For-
If the blood touches the ritual fire, the 6 days of agonizing work are ruined, and the spiritual energy is corrupted.
It is a scene of maximum terrifying chaos. Blood is falling from the sky like rain, demons are swarming the perimeter, the sky is blacked out, and Vishwamitra cannot even open his eyes or speak to advise them.
It's all on Rama now.
And here is where we get the massive payoff for the previous chapters. Here is where the bestowal of the astral weapons proves its worth. We get to witness the absolute precision of Rama's power. He doesn't panic, he doesn't lose his temper, and most importantly, he doesn't indiscriminately fire his most destructive weapons into the sky just to clear the area.
No, he calmly and coldly assesses the specific threats.
Exactly.
He differentiates between his targets with chilling clarity. He looks up at Maricha, the leader, the son of the woman he killed. Rama reaches into his mind and selects a very specific, highly calibrated weapon, the Manavastra.
Which is what?
This is often translated as the humane or the cold arrow. He draws it, aims, and strikes Maricha squarely in the chest.
But the weapon doesn't kill him.
No, it is explicitly designed not to. The ancient verses detail Rama stating his specific intention as he draws the bow. He declares he will use this weapon to forcefully remove Maricha and baffle his senses, but he will deliberately spare his life. The sheer kinetic impact of the Manavastra hits Maricha and violently hurls him an astonishing distance, a full 100 yojanas, which translates to hundreds of miles, launching him entirely out of the forest and plunging him deep into the distant ocean.
Just completely blasts him away.
Maricha is left senseless, spinning, terrified, and completely removed from the battlefield. But he breathes. He survives.
Which is a wild tactical decision. Why spare the guy leading the assault? Why spare the powerful, vengeful son of the monster you just eradicated? If anyone has a motive to keep coming back, it's Maricha.
Because Rama's philosophy of restraint, the wisdom Vishwamitra just taught him, is already fully integrated. In the grand overarching narrative of the Ramayana, Maricha has a specific pivotal role to play much later in the epic.
Right.
But looking at it purely within this immediate moment, Rama applies the exact calibrated amount of force required to neutralize the specific threat without resorting to unnecessary lethal force. Maricha is disrupting the sacrifice. Removing him hundreds of miles away solves the problem perfectly.
It's the difference between using a sledgehammer and a surgeon's scalpel. Rama has the literal power to obliterate the entire forest, vaporize the sky, and turn every demon into ash.
He definitely does.
He has weapons of mass destruction waiting patiently in his mind. But he refuses to use them lazily. He chooses the exact tool for the exact outcome. He surgically extracts Maricha from the equation.
But he assesses the other commander, Subahu, very differently.
How so?
Subahu and the remaining demonic swarm are relentlessly vicious, pouring down blood, utterly unrepentant in their desecration. For them, Rama decides lethal force is the only viable option.
So he switches weapons.
He reaches back into his mind and summons the Agnya, the terrifying fire weapon. He strikes Subahu and the demon is instantly incinerated, falling dead to the earth.
And the rest of the swarm.
Immediately following that, to clear the swarm, Rama summons the Vayuvya, the wind weapon. A localized hurricane erupts, scattering and destroying the remaining demonic followers, blowing the dark clouds away. The sky clears. The blood stops falling. The altar is pristine. The 6-day sacrifice is completed successfully.
The tactical execution is just awe-inspiring. In the span of seconds, under immense pressure, he neutralized 3 entirely different levels of threat using 3 completely different methodologies.
Flawless.
He used non-lethal displacement for Maricha, highly targeted lethal incineration for Subahu, and area of effect clearance for the swarm. With the sky clear, the demons vanquished, and the ashram safe, this specific, grueling coming-of-age trial is officially over.
And the culmination of this trial brings a profound shift in relationships. As Vishwamitra completes the final rites of his ritual, his vow of silence finally breaks.
But week is up.
He stands up from the altar, and the dynamic between the towering sage and the teenage boy fundamentally transforms.
Vishwamitra turns to Rama, and he doesn't just give him a pat on the back or a good job. He offers profound, deep praise. He embraces him.
A true acknowledgement.
He acknowledges that Rama has actualized his mentor's teachings perfectly, that he has brought absolute glory to the Siddhashrama. He has proven that the immense power housed in his mind is guided by an equally immense moral compass.
The apprenticeship phase, the time of simply following orders in the dark woods, has ended. Rama is no longer just a student. He has proven himself a fully realized protector, capable of wielding the forces of the universe with restraint.
And the next morning, as the sun rises over the healed ashram, the entire trajectory of their journey changes. They pack up their camp, they offer their respectful goodbyes to the forest deities, but they don't turn south.
They don't.
They're going back to the safety of the palace in Ayodhya.
No, the private initiation in the wilderness is over. Now, the world stage awaits the young prince.
The sacrifice is protected. Vishwamitra turns to the princes with a new expression, not a teacher, but something closer to an equal. Come, he says. There is a city called Mithila, and a bow that no one has ever been able to lift. I want you to see it.
It is the perfect, tantalizing pivot from the isolation of the wilderness to the complex politics of kingdoms. But before we leave this forest behind, we must circle back to where we started today.
To our first core life value.
Exactly. Compassion and necessary action are not always opposites. In fact, they often demand each other. We watched a 14-year-old boy grapple with the immense, crushing weight of taking a life.
He did.
We watched him understand the deeply tragic history of his enemy, and yet still find the terrible resolve to draw his bow. He learned the hardest lesson of all, that to truly hold power is to master restraint.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Bala Kanda, I want to leave you with a thought to carry with you. Think about that moment of hesitation before the arrow was released. Think about the tension on that bowstring.
It's a powerful image.
Is there a hard action in your own life, a difficult conversation, a necessary ending, a boundary that must be drawn that you have been actively avoiding because you are tangled up in the history or the emotional complexity of what you would be acting against?
It's a tough question to answer.
It is. What would it mean for you to finally act and hold that deep complexity at the exact same time? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening. If this story touched your heart, please do subscribe and press the bell icon